Welcome in to the Blake Street Banner, the Rockies Insider on Blake Street Banner. I'm your host, Patrick Lyons, and joined with me is the other host, the co-host, if you will, Noah Spyrick. What's going on, buddy?
Hey. I'm happy to be here. We have regular season baseball to break down. Finally.
Yeah, I think we might have joked last week that the next time we got together, we'd be talking about the 0-4 Colorado Rockies. Oh, no. Take the over. Take the over on those Rockies. They are 1-3 after a series in Tampa, one in Philadelphia. And, we've got a big topic to talk about today, these torpedo bats. But in general, just how nice is it to have baseball back as a whole, whether it's MLB or the Colorado Rockies? How good is it right now at this time of year?
It's awesome, especially for myself, who those afternoon classes can get a little bit boring from time to time. And so there's always a game now to flip on, which is great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the afternoon games are wonderful. Rockies don't have a game on April Fool's Day. I don't know if that's ironic or coincidental, or I don't know what the descriptor would be, but the story right now in baseball, and I just got off a podcast talking about this, is I know you're interested in talking about it. Like if you had to not put a title on the weekend, but the biggest piece of news over the first weekend of baseball, I think there's a couple stories and teams that would probably jockey for position for, being top of the heap. But for you, what was probably the biggest story for the first 3-4 days of the 2025 campaign?
Got to be the Yankees hitting a home run per inning with those freaking torpedo bats. Look, by Friday, every team will have them if they don't already have them. But my gosh, I believe they're legal. The players say they're legal, but I don't understand how something this instrumental to success hasn't come about sooner. You know what I mean? I know that it took a couple of years to get them in rotation, but I have a hard time believing the bats are truly this good. I do think that there's some psychological factor where, look, I have this new and improved bat. I have to hit better. And maybe there's truth to that. But it's shocking the numbers that the Yankees have been putting up with the bats. And not all Yankees are using them. It's Volpe and it's Jazz Chisholm guaranteed. And there might be more now, but those are the two names I remember seeing that outwardly stated that they were using them.
Yeah, there's definitely a mental component to those kind of things for players. And again, it's like having a good spring and taking that momentum with you into the season. Baseball is a very cyclical sport, is that things that were trendy once a while ago will come back and it will be seemingly new, like the launch angle revolution. That's something that Ted Williams talked about forever, swinging on an upward plane so that your bat is going through the path of the baseball a lot longer period of time. And so it wasn't brand new. It was just newly adopted, and it was giving a new name and a new moniker. And that's kind of always, been the case with baseball, is something that's old becomes new again. And we kind of forget that, no, it did always exist, just we haven't seen it in a while.
This feels kind of similar to the axe handle bats that were popular at this point 7 years ago. My last bat that I used leading into my freshman year of high school was an axe handle bat. I liked them. I liked the feel. And so I understand why players like them. But look at how quickly those rose to fame. And then now no one ever talks about the axe handle.
Yeah, it's something that works for some players versus other. I think Hunter Goodman uses an axe handle at least once in a while. So the Yankees on Saturday, 9 home runs. Aaron Judge was 3. He missed a 4th by not very much as well. Yankees made home run history in that opening homestand with 15 home runs in their first 3 games of the season, tying a club mark with 13 home runs in 2 games on top of that. And a lot of people pointing to the bats, which, as you said, Aaron Judge not using the torpedo bats. And some people saying, well, what did the Milwaukee Brewers turn around and do in their first game out of the Bronx? They gave up 10 runs to the Kansas City Royals on Monday. So we can probably pump the brakes on the torpedo bats just a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think so as well. And I also saw another number where the number of pitches, fastballs that the Yankees saw between 88 and 90 miles an hour was almost double what the team that had seen the second most meatball fastballs had seen. And I wish I had that pulled up in front of me, but it was a class discussion in one of my classes. And I thought, that certainly adds a factor too.
You do attend the University of You're talking about this in your classes? That's awesome. That's
Oh
great.
yeah, heck yeah, the torpedo bats are everywhere.
By the way, I need to trademark that. University of Cooperstown. That could be a thing. It should be a thing, maybe.
I like that. I like it.
I do like that. Yankees, after Monday's game, they have a run differential of plus 22. Noah, when do the Rockies even score their 22nd run?
What, they're at 9 right now?
Yes.
Oh goodness. Let's put it on the home opener. They'll get to their 22nd run.
Okay. Yeah, I think they'll score a bunch once they get back home. I think that, I think it's a Band-Aid in a sense, right? Being able to play at altitude and just feel good breaking balls, not breaking quite the same way, but only 2 home runs so far on this road trip through the first 4 games. And, the torpedo bats there are some guys in the Rockies clubhouse that have ordered these. Ryan Spielberg's first, reported that, but I don't know that it's going to be a needle mover for a lot of guys, because I think you discussed it a little bit. This is just a non-traditional location of where the barrel is located. It's closer to the hands. It's totally within regulation for Rule 302, that as long as it's no larger than 2.61 inches in diameter and 42 inches in length, it's legal, it's fine. And so the Yankees are playing by the rules. They are just realizing that some of their hitters have an advantage by using analytics to say, well, we're noticing a lot of our guys are maybe not necessarily getting jammed, but they're hitting the ball lower down, usually where the label is going to be located. And so that kind of investment in research and analytics is what's allowed, as you said, Anthony Volpe, Jazz Chisholm, as well as Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt, and Austin Wells be that much more productive.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense. I think when you look at the makeup of the normal bat, if you will, why have all of that wood right at the end of the bat? Because sure, you might get a few more blue pits with that extra wood being on the bat at the end, but chances are, if you're hitting the ball off the end of the bat, it's going to be an out. And so I like the ingenuity in moving the portion of the bat down a little bit, because you make your barrel bigger. And like you said, they studied where their hitters hit the ball the most on their bat. And if you're going to hit a 85-mile-an-hour ground out to shortstop, the extra barrel could heat it up to 90, 95. That classifies as a hard hit ball. Maybe it becomes an error. It makes everything more difficult on the defense if you objectively just look at the 2 differences in the bat.
So this was an innovation that was attributed to Aaron Leanhart, who was a former MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He was a physicist turned coach. He had worked on it for about 2 years with the Yankees. He's now a Marlins field coordinator. So this is a guy that has climbed the ranks very quickly. The Marlins also should be noted 3-1, all 3 wins via walk-off. Now, as good as this has been, we might end up finding out that this could be bad for players' health. Now, again, jumping to conclusion perhaps a little bit, but Giancarlo Stanton, I believe, may have been using these torpedo bats last year. And he currently right now is out of action. Both of his elbows are just sore. It hurts a lot. So I'm curious. And again, we'll find out over the course of the season that, like you said, that larger barrel, if that doesn't create, more of an impact on the ball, which is good for the ball, not as good for your body, not as good maybe for your hands and wrists, and of course your elbows, shoulders even. That will be an interesting thing that we might find out here going forward. But in this small sample size, it's been positive for the Yankees.
Yeah, it's good to think ahead like that, because you're the first person. I haven't seen any of that online about concerns for, typically things like this need to be tested a lot before they get carried out and mass produced. But this is evolving, and it's evolving fast. Today, whether it's Leanhart or Leonard, I'm not sure, but his media availability, which I'm sure he never talks to the media, it was huge. There were so many clips and perspectives of reporters huddled around Leonard. I love that, because you don't think about that ever, and now here he is in the leading story of baseball.
And it's interesting too that, again, we don't know how this will end up playing out, but at least right now, it's interesting to see that the Marlins took away someone from the Yankees that, was right on the ball, was, hit the nail on the head there. And you go, oh, it usually is the opposite way around. Makes you think, well, maybe Peter Bendick's there in Miami. They're doing something right. They're definitely doing something right in terms of their team Hall of Fame. I was going to save that until later, but what were your thoughts on seeing, Jeff Conine, Mr. Rocky, one of the guys that was one of the original Florida Marlins back in 1993, the Marlins unveiling in well, it's not Marlins Park now. Is it still Lone Depot Park?
I think so.
Lone Depot Park, formerly Hard Rock Cafe. No, that's Joe Robbie Stadium. But yeah, the Marlins, again, half siblings of the Colorado Rockies. They came into the league the same year. They now have their own Legends Hall of Fame, and they're honoring those players and those moments in the 30-year history of the Marlins. What are your thoughts on something like that as someone who, younger guy, your fair amount of history, but you're also hungry to know even more history that's out there, but you just haven't had a chance to really absorb it yet. A Hall of Fame would go a long way to doing that.
Yes. Yeah. I need to be educated even more on the players that had such an impact, not only in the early years of the Rockies, but that whole era. I like anytime a player gets honored. There was a lot of debate, and there will be ongoing debate later in the season if things start to get a little bleak for the Rockies about should Charlie Blackmon have his number retired. Like, anytime you're able to honor a player and have that conversation, I think you should. It's not as if the Rockies have 20 jersey numbers available. So to see the Marlins do that, I think is great. And the Rockies, they have the feature out in center field behind the batter's eye, and they have the retired numbers on the facing of the second deck. But I would like to see something like that. There's a hallway back behind the club area at Coors Field with some. You actually did a video on it, and that's how I learned about it on the Rockies Insider. I haven't made a trip up there, but that's just like moments at Coors Field, right?
Yeah. In the 200 level and the suite level, they've got that. There are different. They do honor the history in various ways, but it's not necessarily open and available to all fans to see in one general place. And again, honoring those great players that, there's a small fraction that are in the Hall of Fame. You got Walker and Helton. And then you've got, obviously Jackie Robinson's numbers retired, KSM for Kelly Scott McGregor. And, that's it. And maybe Charlie Blackmon gets his name there despite, probably not making it to the Hall of Fame. That's okay. But just honoring that history, I think it also honors the fans in a big way too. Incidentally, July 19th against the Twins is a Saturday. So if you need a weekend day on the 19th to retire number 19, I don't know anything that anybody else doesn't know, but I saw that last year when the schedule came out. And I thought, okay, July 19th is the day that you retired number 19. Maybe they'll wait another year. I don't know why they would, but I could see that happening.
I mean, you think about Todd Helton Day, it was the same thing on the 17th. So I think you're right on the money there. And it's not that'd be a good call out. And you heard it here first on Blake Street Banner in the Rockies Insider crossover.
Sons of Sandstone. You could be my son, because if you ever go to the town of Lyons, and you could see this all up and down the Front Range, that red sandstone that's kind of iconic of Colorado, it's actually called Lyons Sandstone. Fun fact right there for you.
I did not know that. You think
Ryan saying the Stanton conversation is interesting. I bet it's more about him being too big, strong, fast for his own body. I agree with that. But maybe the Torpedo bat requires more torque. Again, it's just, it could be a much harder rate of contact, right? For the wrists and for the elbows. But, Stanton has had a lot of injuries, so he might not necessarily be that best test case when it comes to whether or not, these bats could be an injury issue, which, look, there were bats that were injury issues, maybe probably 20 years ago about it at that point. I think when Barry Bonds switched over to ash bats and they were breaking and there were shards of bat just flying at pitchers on a nightly basis, we got to make sure something like that doesn't happen. But for right now, the Torpedo bats, I think are on the up and up health-wise for the players. It's also interesting too that the Yankees were using these bats in spring training. No one cared.
Yeah, of course not. Until the historical night happens with those gaudy numbers that we saw against the Brewers, no one will care. I just think it's wild that now on DraftKings, there's a whole section where you bet on the players that are using torpedo bats to hit home runs. Like it's a whole section, not same game parlay,
Does
not
it
any.
say torpedo?
Yeah, it's its own page.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's how
Wow.
fast this stuff is blown out of proportion. And I mean, I'm not opposed to the Rockies picking up a set and going at it because they've scored 9 runs. So something's got to change.
Is there a setting for splinkers?
Yeah.
We got, like, if we're doing it for hitters, might have to do with pitchers. Tell me, what do you think? Rockies 1-3 right now after the first 4 games of the season. What are your biggest takeaways? Whether you could start good, you could start bad, you could start with frustrating, whatever it might be. What have you seen so far here after 4 games?
Yeah, well, what stands out most prominently is the starter's ERA. It's below a run at 0.84, and the Rockies might go the rest of the season without a 4-game stretch like this from their starters. It's been tremendous. The Chicago White Sox, they haven't given up an earned run in their starting rotation. But other than that, I can't think of another team that's had quite as much success as Colorado's had. And you look at the flip side of that, well, what happens once the starters are done? The bullpen comes in and they have a 10.80 ERA, which is good for 28th in the league, 28th in Major League Baseball. That can't happen, and I feel betrayed because I harped on all offseason how excited I was about the young bullpen. But to be honest, the guys that have gone out there have not looked comfortable, namely Tyler Kinley and Victor Vodnik.
Yeah, and Angel GVG was good in the victory there. Yeah, again, small sample size too, right? And you look at potential of young players where, again, if you have, a guy that has a low 5 ERA, you're like, that's not great, but you can still see positives. You can still see upside. I mean, we all saw what Chase Dollander was able to do in spring training with an ERA that was north of 5, and you still go, yeah, this could be a guy that, crazy enough, Patrick did say a 15 strikeout performance at some point in 2025, that could still happen. And so, smaller sample size, the usage of those relievers, which other than the opening day decision to go to Tyler Kinley with Kyle Freeland still at only 67 pitches going into the 7th inning. Other than that, not a ton of discrepancy with maybe what I would have done if I was the manager. Again, Bud Black has way more information available than you and I combined, right? Or multiplied by each other, however you want to figure that out. So he's knowing things about certain guys. You could look to say, well, when Scott Alexander coughed up a couple things on Monday and wasn't particularly good. Well, Luis Peralta just pitched the last 2 games. So if you wanted Peralta there, great, but he wasn't available. So, those are kind of the things that have to get, managed with a bullpen. And I think over time they'll be able to settle in and not, be trying to catch their breath like they were last year, in which, Jalen Beeks, who was good, not great, but he was the best option in the 9th inning because they were losing so many games in the 9th, even with big leads. And I really don't think that's going to happen this year. And because of that, they'll probably win 5 more games that they would have lost last year. But you're right. So far, it hasn't been great. It hasn't been totally ugly. I mean, ERA north of 10 is not great. But I think it's just like you said, the moments in which these have come have been way more opportune for the opposing team, who is taking advantage of these relievers not having their best days.
Yeah, the Rockies' only win was a 2-1 win. The bullpen's under, and starting pitchers, they're under a ton of pressure when you have an offense that's not producing. Yes, it's only 4 games, but gosh, for that to be the first impression is disappointing. I want to ask you about Victor Vodnik because it feels like in the time we've seen him in Rockies purple, he's been a bit of a swinging pendulum where when he gets hot, like he can go out there and string several great performances together in a row, but then on the flip side, he struggles for a game or 2, and all of a sudden it kind of snowballs into 6 or 8. What do you have on Vodnik?
Yeah, no, you're right. He's very hot and cold, right? And sometimes you can tell when he's cold because he'll have that body language. If you can watch him, and that's something that he's really been trying to work on is not letting the opposing team know that he's frustrated or he's not his most confident self. I thought it was a little curious that, had the Rockies had the lead going into the ninth on opening day and any point after that, they would have gone to Victor Vodnik in the ninth in a save situation where, Kinley's the more veteran guy that you'd be fine with him going out there and doing it because, it's really different than, when we talk about Zach Veen and Chase Dollander, those are actual positions, right? Where there's a spot where that the person is going to play and there's really no other option. When it comes to reliever, you have a role. So whether you're using Seth Halverson in the 7th inning to get out, Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, and Trey Turner, or you're using him in the 9th to get Edmundo Sosa, Brendan Marsh, and Johan Rojas, you might want to use him earlier on in the game to get those bigger outs. And so that's where the role of a closer, I don't think maybe isn't necessarily as important. So I would have been fine if Kinley was there as the guy in the 9th. Seth Halverson is the guy that they really want to be that closer. And I think he is a guy that, a little bit unlike Vodnik, if you do see him have that hiccup, I think he's going to be able to bounce back and be fine. And he won't be down for a couple of weeks where you may have to build him back up. I think he'll be able to get back on that horse like a veteran, like Tyler Kinley would be able to, and go out and be able to perform and be fine.
Yeah. Yep. I'm with you. And I think in a sport as mental as baseball, momentum is such a thing. And you like to sign off with that occasionally on some of our episodes, which is making me smile. I'm going to stick with another positive that I've taken away from the first 4 games. And the Rockies defense has just been tremendous. They threw out multiple runners at the plate against the Rays in one of the ball games, and the infield defense, other than a couple bobbled bare hand plays, which are do or die, I have not seen them miss a routine play outside of 1 inning. And unfortunately, that inning led to, I believe it was 4 runs for the Rays in a game that the Rockies had been leading 1-0 heading into the later third of the ball game. A couple errors end up biting you for that game. But other than that, the defense has been stellar. Brenton Doyle has already made a diving catch in the outfield. Jordan Beck had one where he was blind to the ball and just reached his glove up, running back in left field, and snagged it. Michael Tolley has made some of the best picks of the year already. McMahon and Tovar look locked in, and that's huge for a team that plays half their games at altitude. And the Rockies I'll ask you this straight up: do the Rockies in their roster construction put more emphasis on defense than any other team in baseball?
Yeah, I would think that they do, like, honestly, because that's something that's always been a source of pride for some reason. I'm not really sure where that, initially comes from. I think it could very well just be the fact that with Coors Field being the largest outfield in the National League, you just can't give up outs. And so it becomes that thing of, not just death by 1,000 paper cuts with all the singles that bloop in, or those singles that become doubles and doubles that become triples. It's that things can unravel very quickly, just completely on its own. So you cannot give up an out. And, again, I don't work in an analytics department to know what the value of not giving up an out is versus having a defender that's not quite as good defensively, but provides so much more offensively. And you've seen it in years past where, Hunter Goodman fighting for playing time because he's not a first baseman. He's not a right fielder. He's a catcher. And even still, he wasn't getting opportunities as a catcher. He's caught 3 of the first 4 games so far. And in the one in which Stallings was behind the plate, Goodman was still there in the middle of that lineup batting 4th. So, I'm not going to say that they've put an overemphasis on defense to the detriment of their club. Maybe, I don't know what decisions they've made where they've erred on the side of, well, we need really good defense versus, well, this guy is an okay defender, but he can really hit. Teams I think will kind of mix and match based on their personnel and be okay with not having strength in every single defensive area. Whereas I think the Rockies, they really put a premium on having those really great defenders. I want to get to this comment from Philip in the chat. His takeaways: Seth Halverson looked really good. Got to drop Chris Bryant and maybe Michael Toglia a few spots. Martini is as advertised from his spring training stats. Love the steals from Jordan Beck. TK40 might need to be released. Philip, you're if one of us needs a day off, you can jump in here, because I think you're while I might not agree with everything, good analysis overall in general. My question to you, Noah, would be, and to Philip too, if you're still here in the chat, if you're dropping Chris Bryant and Michael Toglia a few spots, who's hitting fifth? Who's hitting sixth behind Goodman?
I was going to say, well, number one, who's hitting fifth? I can't even say Hunter Goodman anymore, because that's the cleanup hitter. He has come out of the gates on fire. He's 5 for 16, and he has a 625 slug, including the Rockies' second homer of the year in Philadelphia. And that was a really good at bat. It looks like a whole different Hunter Goodman out there. And Tyler Patter, part of our great team, he was saying that in our group chat the other day. He has been tremendous, not only in the results, but also in his process, according to Tyler's eye early. And he has a better analytical eye than I do. But gosh, after Doyle, Tovar, McMahon, and Goodman, you have to slide someone up into the 5 and 6 hole. Jordan Beck he's received consistent playing time so far. I can't justify putting, in that scenario, Beck any lower than 6th, but the options run slim. I'm really struggling to think of anyone, because Toglia just has to be there with his power threat. What do you think?
Yeah, no, there really aren't those options, right? It's just, that's what you got. It's, again, in the last couple of years, questioning Bud Black's choices in the bullpen, which everyone has the right to do. But when there aren't, guys out there that are able to get outs, it's hard to really question, because there's no other option. So you're looking at the strikeouts by Bryant, Toglia, 8 strikeouts in 15 at bats, and you go, oh man, that's killing the team. What else could you do? Now, maybe Nick Martini, well, with his bat, you could possibly slide him up to the 5th spot in the order. Again, not ideal, certainly, for what the Rockies are trying to do with their future, but that certainly would be a Band-Aid that would protect Hunter Goodman and make him that much more better. He's a part of your future. Keep Toglia there batting 6th. Chris Bryant then could be, your number 7 hitter at that point, and you're taking away some of those RBI opportunities. So, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And that really is, probably one of the biggest concerns with the lineup in general. In the chat, it's tough. I like Beck at 9, so he can be on base for numbers 1 through 4. 2 stolen bases on opening day. Maybe once Tyro is back, he becomes an option. Strikeouts are just a killer in the heart of the order right now. Martini has been making contact.
I love that Martini's been making contact, so he's got to go 5 or 6 hole.
Hey, you got to put pressure on the defense. It's definitely something. Ryan saying you could, I don't know, hit Veen lead off and push everyone down a spot. Certainly that would lengthen your lineup just a little bit.
What if Nolan Jones was hitting in the 5 hole like he was for Cleveland the other day?
I mean, those, well, we don't live in that world anymore, Noah, okay? Got to get over that. No, you're right. Like, I think, again, the benefits of batting Brenton Doyle leadoff versus number 2 certainly can be debated. Now, you need somebody that can still get the job done hitting leadoff. Now, each spot in the batting order, you get 15 less plate appearances over the course of a season. So dropping Brenton Doyle from 1 to 2 is going to result in 15 less plate appearances. If you're saying, well, we need Brenton Doyle and use all his power, batting 4th, well, now you're dropping him 3 spots. That's 45 less plate appearances that he would get. That's one of the reasons why, 20 some years ago, Tony La Russa, a guy who is certainly not allergic to, analytics and talking with people and trying to innovate in different ways, he would have his best hitter batting 2nd. And now that's very common to say a guy that might be even a little bit lumbering, hey, let's get him that many more at bats versus hitting cleanup, where that's 30 less plate appearances over the course of a full season. So if you can have someone that is capable to hit leadoff, that you want to get those at bats, now your lineup can lengthen a little bit. To Philip's point, Jordan Beck from, batting 9th, in a way, yeah, that allows the order to turn over. But if you hit him first versus hitting him ninth, that's a difference of 120 plate appearances.
Yeah.
He's getting 120 less plate appearances batting ninth. It's an easier spot, easier situation than batting leadoff, right? Where you're immediately up, you're immediately you're the first guy up to start a game. If it's at home, you're running in from the outfield, then you're trying to get yourself ready. Some younger guys, they may have some difficulty with it, but I think the biggest thing that the Rockies need to do is not worry about those things. Just try it. Just give someone a shot, give them that chance, give them that opportunity. Failing a little bit more than they would have if you would protect them or just not give them said opportunity. I don't know that helps them that much if you give them that chance, if you give Jordan Beck an extra 120 plate appearances hitting leadoff, yes, he might fail in some spots where he wouldn't batting ninth, but you might also see him excel in ways that you would never even think that he could from the ninth spot in the order. It's taking a chance on these young guys and giving them more opportunities.
I'm with you all the way through, and I think to more of what Philip said, when Bean's up, he'll be towards the bottom of the lineup. I to Philip's point, I think the Rockies had prepared for Thairo Estrada to be a large part of their offense. Him going down really hurt, and I actually was a big fan of the signing, a larger fan than most, I'd say. Until he comes back, I don't know if I can have Chris Bryant hitting cleanup anymore. And he hit cleanup for 2 games, and that was more than enough for me. He has still yet to record a hit on the season. He did get on base twice against Philadelphia. He walked twice. And so if he's able to give you professional at-bats, that's big. But as one of the broadcasters on Rockies TV said, he's just not picking up the baseball right now.
No, he's not. And that hurts the team as a whole, right? It's going to be in the middle of those run scoring opportunities. I think Rockies do a good job of keeping certain things under wraps and under their hat and close to the vest, all those different idioms you might want to use. But you have to think that some of these guys are thinking, I'm tired of this guy getting these opportunities and hitting in these spots, and it's actually hurting us, right? Like it's the fallacy of sunk costs. So something, maybe should be done about that at some point. And, you look at the Rockies who struggle to hit on the road. That's fine. 9 runs in 4 games. It's not actually the worst. Atlanta is really struggling right now. They're getting kicked while they're down. They've only scored 8 runs in 5 games. Houston, 8 runs in 4 games. Minnesota, 6 in 4 games. But again, they've got lineups that I think you can look at and say, no, they're going to end up scoring a lot. I think the Rockies, you're going to be able to say that, once they build some momentum, I don't want to say that they're streaky, but they are a team, I think, that they can really be impacted by a negative and a slow start. They don't know how to win just yet. And so because of that, when you lose, I think it's very easy to get into a mindset of that's kind of who we are. Yeah, we know we're really good. We're still some of the greatest baseball players of this generation. And, we're better than the guys that are down in the minor leagues. So they have that confidence. But in general, it can definitely create a domino effect where it just gets worse and worse. And you saw that last year when after that Arizona loss on opening day, and then in Chicago, they're looking really bad and they're trailing the first 31 games of last season.
That was crazy.
Believe it or not, they've led all 4 games this year, and they're only 1-3. Their counterparts on Wednesday and Thursday, the Phillies, they've trailed every game and they're 3-1. But again, the Phillies know how to win.
I'm glad you made note of not only that crazy stretch last season where they began almost a record. I'm not sure if they quite tied it, but it was a record that they would have shared with like the 1914 something Bears, like in terms of amount of consecutive games trailing to start it. I've noticed that they've gotten out in front in every game this year, and I haven't seen anyone talk about it because it is so different than last year. A lot of the stuff I've seen on social media and discourse about the Rockies, and there's a lot of it right now because everyone's got that, fresh season. We're going to tune in just to see what it's like. A lot of people are saying this feels just like the way they were losing games last year because of the bullpen meltdowns. Like you said, it's only been 4 games, but it all comes back for me to the lack of support that the staff is getting. As a team, and you noted this, the Rockies have 7 extra base hits. Hunter Goodman has 3 of them. That cannot happen. And even if it looks like Hunter Goodman's on his way to a Brenton Doyle type of breakout, Michael Toglia type of breakout, where is everyone else? And why is nobody showing up? It's concerning to me because as one of the great accounts in Rockies Twitter, Luke Hall at Oak Tree Status, he collected this morning. The Rockies offense is worst in walk rate, second to worst in K rate, and 28th in ISO, which is a power metric. And I won't even speak on the power metric because we've spoken about that enough. But if you're not going to walk, then you cannot be striking out as much as you are right now. If you're hitting homers and you're getting on base, you can deal with a little bit of swing and miss. But right now, the Rockies are swinging and missing at all 3 facets of offense.
And opposing teams just aren't afraid of them. The biggest thing that I think gets overlooked when discussing, whether or not this is going to be another 100 loss season, and I ultimately think it is going to be, is that everybody that the Rockies play is better than them. Like, that's just the bottom line. Like I heard, from some of the announcers saying like, man, this is a tough start to the year. You're in Tampa, which the Rockies never play well at. And there's a lot of different places around the U.S. where the Rockies don't play well because historically speaking, they have not, been a good team and they haven't been a good franchise. But okay, the Rays, they're a team that they are perennially going to be in the hunt for the AL East, despite the fact that the average baseball fan, probably still thinks Evan Longoria is their third baseman. Newsflash, he hasn't been for at least 2 years. I'm going to say at least 2 years. Yeah. No, it's been more like 8. But nevertheless, the Rays, always good. And now you got to go to Philadelphia. Man, that's really rough. And you get the A's for the home opener, but they just reinvested in their roster, and they've got a lot of really good young players. Milwaukee is always there. There are just teams that are just better, and they're just run a lot more professionally. And there's a reason why, the Rockies are in the bottom of the standings, for the last 6+ years since going to the postseason in 2018. And I think that's something that, a lot of folks can miss, is as excited as you can be for the Rockies farm system, or as exciting as one can be for, players like Michael Toglia, Brenton Doyle, and Ezekiel Tovar, and rightfully so. Other teams have players like this, and other teams have guys even better than that, protecting them in the lineup to help get them to that next stage in that next level. As good as Hunter Goodman has been, there's nobody hitting behind him in the lineup. Chris Bryant's presence was supposed to allow everybody else to be that much better, to see better pitches, because, hey, if you don't get this guy out at the plate now, Chris Bryant's coming up with at least one guy on base. Now there's not that threat. So I can go at you and not worry about anything. It's just one-on-one matchup each and every time someone steps up to the plate. And so many other teams have deeper lineups and have players that are already superstars, and that they can piggyback off of each other and help support one another to get that much better. And the Rockies are missing that. They're missing that superstar. And that's just, again, another one of the reasons why every time that they line up against another team, that team is going to be better than them.
I like thinking about the Rockies postseason years in 17 and 18 and considering the lineups that they had, because everyone is able to name Charlie, DJ, Trevor Story, and Nolan Arenado. But then they don't think of Gerardo Parra and Ian Desmond and Mark Reynolds, who hit 35 plus home runs in 2017. Maybe it was 16. But the point is, Ian Desmond, I remember he was a player that Rocky social media didn't really like, and shoot, the younger fan me did not like Ian Desmond because it felt like he grounded into a lot of double plays. If you put Ian Desmond, 2018 Ian Desmond in the lineup right now on the Rockies, he'd be that 5-hole hitter. And where would David Dahl be in this Rockies lineup? like it takes a village, and the Rockies need they. I'm trying to figure out the way to word this. They don't need one Michael Toglia, Brenton Doyle breakout each year. They need like 7 guys to take a step forward, right? Am I too far off base here?
Yeah, I don't know what the exact number is, but they need everybody to be that much better going forward. And it can't just be our roster has taken a step forward. Because again, Martini and Farmer, these players are not going to be around in a couple years. So it's the proper personnel, and then giving those opportunities to the younger players to do that, which that's part of the game plan. And I think they're going to end up doing that. So you understand the disappointment by a lot of Rockies fans for no Dollander, no Zach Veen, maybe no Adiel Amador when the second baseman gets hurt. They will be there. I think they will get those opportunities, but you're right. You need everyone to take a big step forward. And I think you can do that. I think that is very possible, but the Rockies have been waiting for that since 2021. They've been waiting for that, like perennially 2 years away from getting back to relevancy. And it just hasn't been happening. So, their best hope is to turn those keys over to the young players and give them that chance, because they're not going to find somebody off the scrap heap. The Rockies, unfortunately, have a track record right now where they don't make players better. Connor Joe was a guy where you can look and say, man, there was something that was there. He just couldn't stay healthy. Maybe he wasn't given opportunities. And, he provided some depth out in left field, and was there for a good at bat, and obviously was a great guy. But you look at the statistics and they're kind of in line with what he was, before he finally got an opportunity with the Rockies. So, he got maybe a little bit better, but other than that, players don't come to Colorado to get better. You have to be able to develop them, not just draft them, which the Rockies are always going to be doing at the top of the first round, but they've got to be able to develop them. And that's really where, they've also been falling flat in general.
Yeah, and I think in some cases it's the guys that the Rockies didn't expect to be those guys that have become the guy. 2021, talking about Drew Romo, he was looking like, okay, the Rockies could have a franchise catcher in this kid coming up. And now Hunter Goodman has taken that catcher 1 spot, and the way he's hitting, yes, it's 4 games and he's actually played 1 less. But the development last season, and obviously a productive offseason, has led to, Philip's comment talking about how Hunter Goodman providing Ryan McMahon lineup protection is not something that anyone would have had on their bingo card, last season, even in June. So they just need more of that. And that sounds like oversimplifying it, but if it's not results that are improving, it's got to be process. And I do think in the Rockies game on Monday, if looking at this in an extremely tiny scope, I noticed an in-game adjustment as they were getting mowed down by that lefty whose name is evading me for the Phillies. What was that starter?
Christopher Sanchez.
Yes.
He's great. He's very underrated.
Very good. And the first 3 innings, he mowed through the Rockies. And then the Rockies, I think, went 6 straight at-bats, taking strike 1, and they automatically found themselves in better counts, because through the first 9 outs of the ball game, Sanchez just had to put it somewhere close. So if it's not results and guys hitting home runs, then just show the growth towards a professional at-bat, because there's no Charlie Blackmon on this team to lead the way in that area.
Yeah, I think the process is the biggest issue, because Bill Schmidt continues to say, and I think, again, fans have the same evaluation. They just have to play better. How do they play better? What's the actual thing that's going to get them there? Because they're not playing better, right? There are those moments, there are those spurts, but it's keeping that, right? It's keeping that same growth. That's going to take you to that next level. And unfortunately, they just really hasn't had that. Freeland versus Zach Wheeler on Wednesday, 4:45 Mountain Daylight Time. Thursday's afternoon games going to be at 11:05 Denver time. Antonio Senzatella and Taijuan Walker. Since 2001, the Rockies have only won a season series in Philadelphia 4 times: 2021, 2017, 2015, and 2004. Do the Rockies take the last two here and add that to years in which they've won a season series on the road against the Phils?
I don't predict they win the next two. I just think the Phillies lineup is so freaking deep that it's going to be tough to beat. And gosh, Taijuan Walker feels like the Rockies face him. They used to face him what felt like 10 times a year. So he's still doing it.
Yeah, Taijuan Walker, former Diamondback, then he was a Met, and he's been up and down a little bit. He's now in the rotation with Ranger Suarez out on the IL. I tried to do the math in my head real quick while you were answering there. If the Rockies on the road won one game of every 3-game series, but then played 500 baseball at home, I think that's still a 61 win season. So that doesn't really help you. You got to win more at home. They got to take more than just one out of every 3 when it comes to these road series. In the chat, who's mostly to blame about having a lineup full of swing and miss and no on-base percentage guys? The players, the coaches, or the GM? Schmidt has been here since 2021. McMahon, Bryant open as his run producers.
Question.
Players need to perform. I think we know that, but how much support they're getting, I think, not enough has been made about that. Also, the roster that's on the field is one that is made collaboratively by both Bill Schmidt and Bud Black. If the players aren't getting the job done, which again, without pointing fingers, as a roster, they haven't been getting things done for the last 2 years, losing 100 games, and then the last 6 being under 500. And yet, you're seeing a lot of the same faces coming back year in and year out. And Schmidt is the one making that roster, and Bud Black is the one co-signing a lot of those moves too. So again, it's a problem of them striking out is so small compared to what's really happening and what's really going on with this organization, and trying to find its way back on track and having a plan to do that. Whether or not they strike out, 13 times a game or not, it doesn't really factor into that game plan. Maybe it should.
I'm just sitting here and found out they played 500 ball at home and won 27 of their 81 road games. It'd be a 68 win season. So
Okay.
that'd be good improvement, right? But I'm just sitting here thinking about, well, if the Rockies can reach 68 wins, and then the other side of me is saying, well, the Rockies have 1 win, and the Padres and Dodgers have not combined for a loss. This division,
11-0.
This division's relentless.
It is. Yeah. And hey, look, Dick Monfort said, I wish it wasn't as difficult as it is. Then it wouldn't be baseball, wouldn't be professional sports. It's supposed to be challenging. That's what makes it great, right?
That's what makes it special, and it's what's going to make the Rockies' first division title special when it happens.
When it happens. Well, that'll be interesting, because come realignment, if and when that comes, if they don't win the NL West by then, we might be able to say they've never won the NL West, right? They might have won the whatever that division is, the AL Midwest or something like that.
We could just eliminate that period from Rockies history. No one will know.
Yeah. Well, hey, with no Hall of Fame, it's very easy to just totally forget about all the players that contributed to that. Anything else stuck in your craw or that you want to talk about with the Rockies so far?
I mean, I like the way that we covered it tonight, because I thought it was very tactical while being not, overly optimistic, and we weren't just the Twitter guys that go on there and get mad. So this was we struck a balance tonight.
I think so. That's always the goal. We'll see if we get Friday's game in. Might be raining a little bit for the home opener at Coors Field Friday. Also opening night all around minor league baseball. So you'll have all 4 affiliates for the Rockies in play, and that will be just another momentum builder for the baseball fan out there. And if you don't like the content over here because 13 strikeouts and 2 for 14 with runners in scoring position, there's going to be some other kind of content that you could look at, and Blake Street Banner is going to cover it from that minor league perspective as well.
Yeah, and I thought of one question for you. Are you attending that Coors Field event tomorrow where you get the first look at the new food?
No. Every year I usually do, where they have like the promotions, and I don't know, the juice just isn't worth the squeeze like it was before, the Rockies game will also be going on at that time, which is sometimes, can be unusual where, they'll be able to have the day off before, they open up for, you open up Coors Field for the home opener, and you can kind of take in all those things, pick up your credentials and whatnot. So, no, I'm not gonna make the drive to Denver for some free food. I'll wait for a gigantic 2-quart mason jar of Reese's Pieces on Friday when I get to the ballpark. I'm gonna try to cut down on my candy consumption this year. That's gonna be a big goal of mine.
I'll be able to keep you in check on May 19th. The Phillies series starts, and I'll be there, and then the Yankees series after that. So that might be breaking news to you, but you're making my Coors Field return, so I'm hype about that.
There you go. That'll be exciting. Yeah, and hopefully we won't get snow then. We usually that third week in May, historically it was like a decade plus in a row where the third week in May it would just dump snow, and we haven't gotten it the last couple of years, believe it or not. So maybe we're overdue, or maybe that's just a bygone era at this point with climate change. Are we allowed to say that on this? We get flagged. We can be taken off YouTube.
The stream has ended.
Yeah. No, go ahead and plug away. Let folks know where they can check your stuff out at.
Yeah, I'm going to get this point right. Go ahead and follow me at Blake Street Banter. Love contributing there. And at Noah Spyrick on Instagram and Twitter, or the X Machine. That's what it is.
And what was the 30th anniversary of Coors Field? You did one of the write-ups. Which one was yours?
Yeah, mine was the first time the Rockies made the postseason and Spilly's walk-off granny.
Yeah, the Spilly Slam and Curtis Laskanik in 1995 going to the postseason there sooner than any expansion team had ever done it up to that point. Don Baylor going around doing it on the final day of the regular season. Yeah, those are two good ones. Again, that's part of that history where Curtis Laskanik getting the final out and jumping in the arms of Joe Girardi, two guys that don't get brought up that much when it comes in Rockies history. And then Rockies fans do know Ryan Spilborghs, but do they know some of the other things going on behind the scenes of that moment and what it ended up doing for that 2009 team as a whole? So you did a wonderful job writing about that. So I think people definitely need to make sure they check out all of I think there's like 14 different articles about the 30th anniversary of Coors Field. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, the series is doing super well and people love it. So if you haven't caught it, go over to BlakeStreetBanter.com and get a little history lesson. And honestly, just some optimistic Rockies thoughts. They've had some bright moments in their 30 years at Coors Field.
That's cool. At Patrick D. Lyons, at Patrick D. Lyons MLB, at Rockies Insider. Head to the YouTube channel over there. You can also go to the Blake Street Banner YouTube channel, leave a comment there, and you'll get a response, almost right away. We can always pick up the discourse there if it's not over on social media. So appreciate everybody in the chat. Ryan, Phillip, Isaac, Sons of Sandstone, all you guys giving us tons of momentum. But momentum, as I like to say, it's only as good as your next torpedo bat.
Oh,
it's not a great one.